may run the world are happening right now in London. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and U.S. Trade Ambassador Jamieson Greer are meeting with their counterparts from China. It's to try to solidify a real trade deal that would benefit both sides. Remember, we made a handshake deal last month, but the White House accused China of breaking that deal. So what is likely to happen now? Because if we can make a good deal, stocks certainly could have a path higher. But as Danny Moses just said, if things fall apart, could also be watch out below. Let's talk about that and more. Joining us, Kyle Bass, founder and CIO of Heyman Capital Management. And Kyle, you know this, think they got in your ear. If President Trump does come out, we're going to have to go to that, but stay tuned and we'll try to come back to you if and when that ends. We're all kind of flying blind here, so thank you for your flexibility and patience as always. Do you think a deal that will benefit both sides and thus the equity market will come out of London?
Well, I tell you, Brian, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. And of course, I'm not offended by you switching over to President Trump when he comes out. I think that the market and the world is expecting a controlled de-escalation in these talks. I think that this August 12th date kind of looms large. The question is, will they push that date out a little further, or will they have to really get into the heat of advanced negotiations in late July? I personally think that we are so far apart on this that it's going to be difficult for us to kind of get a global trade agreement put together. This is a pivotal moment in time for global trade, but more importantly, the relationship between China Inc. and the United States in the long run is kind of boiling down to one important moment here. And as the Chinese frequently do, is they do a handshake or sign a deal and then don't live up to the deal. They didn't live up to the deal that they signed with Trump in the first Trump administration on trade and the agricultural purchases. And in this case, they certainly haven't released the rare earth magnets that are required to run these EV motors. I've met with a couple of EV company heads who tell me they've never released the magnets since the May 12th date. And so, we've got a situation in hand, Brian, here where the Chinese are not living up to the agreement the moment that they agree to something. So it's a difficult situation, I think, going forward here.
It sounds like we're going to relent on some of the items that we were sort of cracking down on, Kyle. Here's what Mark Fields, the former Ford CEO, had to say about just how serious the rare earth magnet issue. He was on the show on Friday. Take a listen.
If you thought the chip shortage was bad, wait till magnets go missing. They'll strip out certain features like adjustable seats or high-end audio systems. But more importantly, I think what you'll see, Brian, back in probably 20, 25 years ago, there was a palladium, which is a key input for catalytic converters, just skyrocketed. And what you saw the industry do is innovate around this so that it can reduce the amount of palladium.
And maybe, Kyle, that innovation happens in the long run. But for now, I think people are aware of the seriousness of the issue.
Yeah, I think, look, I don't think that we need to be that worried about Ford's issue with these rare earth magnets. I mean, you have to realize, we all know that the writing has been on the Great Wall since 2017, since China really turned around and took a different tact with their kind of opening and their integrating into the world and potentially becoming more Western and capitalistic. In fact, they turn inward. And post-COVID, they've really turned inward. This is not rocket science. It's finishing and creating rare earth processing facilities, which, as you know, our Defense Department and the White House is focused on creating some of our own. We have an abundance of rare earth metals and minerals in our soil here. We just need to build processing facilities, and that takes time. In the interim, some of the companies that didn't heed thinking about their supply chains and how they relate to China, they're really going to suffer, including Ford. But as part of these negotiations, we certainly can't give in to a belligerent China over electric vehicle magnets. There's a much larger state of play here as it relates to, let's say, the world order.
If we don't get adjustable seats because we create a more fair economic system with a country that has been artificially keeping the value of its currency low for decades, so their products will always be cheaper, then maybe there's something to that. On the other side, though, listen, electric seats are one thing, Kyle. The pharmaceutical and manufacturing supply chains are another. What kind of power does China wield over us and the world on that? Because so many of the critical ingredients in drugs actually also come from China.
Yeah, so it's fascinating to me, just if you take a few steps back, when you think about the conversation we're having. I've recently had this with a handful of CEOs and some people in the government here in the US. It sounds like we're talking about a hostage negotiation. This doesn't sound like a trade negotiation on what's fair. It's thinking they have something so critical to us, the active pharmaceutical ingredients in antibiotics, which they threatened to pull from us, withhold from us. In the first Trump administration, when Matt Pottinger and his team wanted to investigate the origins of COVID, we wanted to understand where it came from. They immediately threatened to pull antibiotics from us because they didn't want the origins of COVID investigated. So every time I hear about negotiations, I think we need the FBI's lead hostage negotiator here instead of a trade negotiator, because what we're talking about is where we have gaping holes on our side, but on their side, they've got an economy that's 300% of GDP to assets in the banking sector, and their banks are lent to their real estate, which is down 30 or 40. Their entire banking system is teetering on insolvency. They have a real estate crisis, a banking crisis. They have a youth unemployment crisis, Brian. We are dealing
with a demographic crisis.
I mean, the demographic crisis is so severe that you've never seen actuaries have to redraw lines like they're drawing them. The average fertility of a Chinese woman is 1.1. It's at the lowest it's been ever in recorded history, and you need 2.1 just to simply maintain a population. So we're dealing with a caged animal here. We're dealing with a cornered animal here. They like to project strength and what kind of swords of Damocles they hold over our head, but we actually hold all the cards here. And putting together APIs for pharmaceuticals and building rare earth finishing facilities, if we committed ourselves to it, like a Manhattan Project or a public-private partnership, we can do it pretty quickly, Brian. We just need to marshal the resources and do it.
Well, and people would say, well, what about all the cheap goods that we produce here? Yeah, that's a different article. Kyle, we're going to ask you to stick around. I can't promise you we're going to come back, but just stay cool and stay loose, and we're going to kind of figure it out, okay? Kyle, thank you. All right, so Kyle's not going to go away yet because we're waiting on President Trump. Kelly's expected. Why don't you give him a call?
I would like to.
Supposed to come out at 2 p.m. Eastern. Folks, just a reminder, the president is meeting with a bunch of CEOs right now at the White House. Got the CEOs of Robinhood, of Uber, got Brad Gerster of Altimeter Capital, and a number of other bold-faced names. The topic is this idea about giving every child in America born in the next 5 years a $1,000 savings account that would invest in a low-cost stock market index funds. Basically, every child born in America would get $1,000 that is invested in the stock market that he or she could not sell until they turned 18. So it's not like you get the $1,000, then you could sell it to somebody and take the cash. It would be kept in an account. It's not a done deal yet. It's got a long way to go, Kelly, but we are waiting on comments from the president about this.
And it's surprisingly cheap in the long run. We talk about all the budget busting things that are going on, including the tax cuts and everything else. This one is not one of them. It's been an idea you've seen floated on both sides of the aisle for a very, very long time. What would it grow to in a period of 10 or 20 years? That 1,000 could become 35, 5, 6, 7. I mean, it's substantial. And
depends on market returns.
Of course.
Yeah.
Conservatively thinking.
Well, Kyle Bass has agreed to kind of hang around because, he's cool like that. And Kyle, we do appreciate you sitting while we're waiting on the president. Let's forget about China for a second. You are you were actually a bond guy, and then you became a subprime and a stock guy. What do you think of the idea of giving everybody $1,000 at birth?
I mean, as long as they're U.S. citizens and legally in the United States, I think it's a great idea. I mean, in the long run, as you know, the way that we run our pension scheme and our retirement scheme in America, I think teaching kids and giving kids an investment, when I think about how many children there are in America today, I don't know what the proposal is for how many there are today, but if you earn 7% annually, you double every 10 years. So if you're giving a child $1,000 on day one, If you earn 7% a year, 10 years later, you'll have doubled it. So by the time that they're 20, it'll be worth something. It won't be worth enough to pay for college, but there are IRA accounts that you can put set aside for kids, and for workers and this and that. There are tax deferred ways of earning money. The question is in this gift for children, you should certainly, I don't believe you should be able to spend it. You should be able to spend it on education. You shouldn't be able to go out and buy a Gucci bag or some shoes with it like a lot of people did with the money during COVID.
I'm only jumping in because we got the 2-minute warning, so we're expecting the president in 2 minutes. We'll see. The naysayers, and by the way, I posted a poll online. The naysayers have already started to come out of the woodwork. You know what they're going to say, Kyle, which is, number one, to your point, rich people, why should they get it? They're already rich. Number two, just going to enrich Wall Streeters because someone's got to manage the money. And number three, what about my kids? They were born last year. Now they're not going to get it.
I think there's a phase out by income, too, if I'm not mistaken. But, yeah, if families can put another $5K into it, obviously the ones who are better off are going to take advantage of that. Not everyone will be able to.
Yeah, when you think about inflation, what inflation does is it tears at the social fabric of America. The poor are already poor, right? The middle class lose their mobility, and the rich get all the money. And so back to Kelly's point, there would have to be a serious means testing going on here, because I think there are around 70 million kids under the age of 18 in America. So if you gave them all $1,000, you're talking about 70 billion just to fund the account. So you're talking about real money. And so, who knows how to put the bells and whistles and the suspenders around this thing. But I love the idea of saving. I love the idea of saving any possible way, and any way you can do it on a tax-deferred basis is going to benefit our society. If you can mandate those funds be for college expenditures or even high school expenditures.
It appears this would be something like up to 50% would have to be for qualified purposes, so education, home down payment, starting a business, that kind of thing. Of course, we'll see whatever the final proposal is.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're talking huge amounts of money, but it is a great idea to start to teach our kids how to save. I don't know about you guys. I went to a public high school, and there was no talk of saving in my entire high school career. There was no math on investing. There was no math on compounding interest. I only got that in college because I went looking for it.
Yeah, I got it from my dad, who said 401k more than maybe anything. I'm not even sure I knew anything about compound interest, but I just knew do the 401k. And then what's amazing, Kyle, is you just do that thing, you do the match, and then you wake up 15 years later, and it's really turned into something to the point of what they're trying to accomplish here. Exactly right.
But as you know, Kelly, it takes a constancy of purpose and repeating the savings. A one-time investment, again, of $1,000, if we earn 7% for 20 years, will end up being worth $4,000, right? That isn't enough. So you have to teach people how to save and teach people how to compound.
You think about that number, though, okay? Because Kelly and I both also went to public schools in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, Kyle. So we learned a lot about compost interest. I don't know about compound interest, but think about this. Okay, so it's only $4,000 by the time you turn 18, right? So let's say you're able to keep it. Then it's $8,000 when you're 28. It is $16,000 when you're 38, $32,000, and when you die, it's $100,000, assuming you don't spend it, without adding another dime. This is what Warren Buffett learned. Warren Buffett said the majority of his fortune came in the last 15 years of his life, or 20 years, because the numbers are, they're big no matter what, but you get my point. When you double it 100 billion, you go to 200 billion, that's when it really starts to matter. And I don't know why we don't teach this to sixth graders. They're smart enough to understand it. And to your point, it's just stupid that we're not teaching kids the most powerful mathematical tool in the world.
Yeah, there's an old adage, give someone a fish or teach them how to fish. Like, we should be teaching them how to fish in grade school and in middle school and in high school. And the first time I ever saw that compounding effect of savings was when I did the IRA math on what the maximum contribution to an IRA could be. And then if you made that contribution to the math you just did, Brian, but if you make it every year and you earn and you keep compounding, $2,500 investments each year over your lifetime. By the time you're 50, you can have $1 million in the account. Then you're talking about money you can buy homes with and keep as savings. And to your Warren Buffett analogy, when Warren Buffett put a tax wrapper around his investing so it grew tax deferred, that's what needs to happen. I think in IRAs, things grow tax deferred until you draw them. And maybe, as Kelly said, if there are call it allowable expenditures for down purchases on homes or starting businesses or spending it on education, maybe you should never pay tax on that savings and allow it really to work for you. But it's all in all a great idea. It's a great idea.
They're talking about like long-term capital gains if you withdraw between 18 and 24, maybe by 30, maybe ordinary income if it's non-qualified. So there's some stuff like that built into here. But the key is going to be kind of leave it alone and get as much as you can in there. So the president will be talking about that shortly. He's going to get tons of questions about Elon Musk, Kyle, maybe about China. There's just anything else on your brain in particular you're going to be listening for?
Just going back to, I don't know about what's going on between and Trump and Elon Musk. They're two very strong personalities, and I'm just thankful that Elon Musk is here in the United States. He's one of the most consequential human beings. He's the most consequential human being in the 21st century, in my opinion. It's great that he's here. When you think about what he did with Doge, imagine if the prior administration said, we're going to hire McKinsey and we're going to pay them $200 million to go into our government and find the places where we have fat and places where there's largesse in the government expenditures and cut them. I think the whole world will be fine with that. I think the fact that the world's richest man came in and kind of came in with a sledgehammer, but he agreed to do it for free.
Right, unless the consultants found that the consultants were the source of the money.
Yeah, so I applaud the efforts of Doge. We must cut government expenditures. We must figure out how to fund our deficits and close our deficits.
But they're not going to, Kyle, you can't do it because, again, Kelly and I, from Virginia, a lot of our friends work for the government, work around the government. You make a cut, someone's going to come out and say, well, you're trying to take money away from retirees or kids. It's politically unpalatable, even though we know a lot of that money is stolen. That's the biggest part for me, is not the people that work hard and make a good living. It's the money that the government just, I was going to say a bad word, wastes on fraud and abuse, and it goes to cyber crooks overseas. I don't know why we just don't focus on that. As opposed to saying, well, we need to lay off some people over here. Why not just stop giving money to cyber criminals? Hundreds of billions of dollars per year by the government's own estimates. That's not like us just saying numbers. That's the government's, and yet they keep doing it year after year. Money that could go to veterans is going to some Romanian gang.
Yeah. Well, it's also going to NGOs, and the real fat, the real largesse, the real fraud in our government's NGOs. And I think you'll see Jay Clayton at SDNY and the FBI. I actually think you're going to see some really interesting things coming forward with some money that was moved just between the election and the inauguration. Tens of billions of dollars went to very specific places. And I think you're going to see a number of arrests and a number of perp walks, and you're going to see some of that prosecuted, Brian. But in the end, if you believe the political reality is the way that you stated it, whereby it's impossible to cut because there are too many interested parties, then you better own hard assets, and you better own a lot of them, because
like gold. Is that why gold is up 25%?
Bitcoin.
This year? And I want to be clear, nobody's been accused of anything. I want to make that very clear, that there's been no accusations. We'll see what happens. That's your opinion, but gold keeps going up. And is that the reason?
I didn't accuse anyone. I just said I think there's some money that moved around right before the inauguration that I think is going to get it's going to get interesting pretty quick. But gold. Look, gold is simply a proxy for inflation. I think gold was held back due to the introduction of crypto being digital gold. And then in the end, reserve managers can't put their money in gold. There's not enough of it out there. So I think reserve managers have been investing in gold. If you look at China has a closed capital account, meaning they don't allow their currency to freely trade. And they are, again, in kind of an economic winter. Their 10-year bonds, 160, their policy rates, 1.5%. they're telling the world they're growing at 5.5%, but their 10-year bonds at 1.6. So, one of those things is lying, and I'd go with the government is certainly lying, not the bond market. So I think you see state actors, I call it the axis of authoritarians, are all working together. You have China, you have Iran, you have Russia, you have North Korea. I think you're going to see China revalue its gold holdings much higher, and I think you're going to see them try to find legitimacy in having larger gold holdings so that people might trust CNH in the event that China goes to invade or blockade Taiwan.
Kyle, great discussion there. We're going to say goodbye because we are now going to the White House. President Trump with Wall Street's top CEOs. Let's listen in.